I am so delighted to welcome you to this, our inaugural Patients First event, and to see many of you here today. I think it's going to be a great day and very lively, I hope. Whilst we've made huge strides in medical research, there are 10,000 diseases and only 500 treatments currently. And as our American colleagues like to say to us, there's plenty of work to do. Tackling the world's unsolved problems is an enormous task, and I believe that our existing individual models of finding new treatments and cures are limiting. We need new ways of working to move from this to this. Or perhaps a better paradigm is patient-centered collaboration. Today is something very much of a landmark for AMRC by jointly hosting the conference with the ABPI, our colleagues. We've seized a very rare opportunity, but critical, to get everyone involved in medical research sector together. Patients, researchers, charities, government, and industry, all to come together and to collaborate. And most of us here are absolutely motivated by a strong desire to make a difference in the field of medical research. Patients and people affected by ill health unite us all. Currently, we face many unsolved problems, such as dementia, and all within a climate of economic uncertainty. And it is vital that the sector pulls together to address these challenges, with patients and their families very much at the heart of what we do. We're really delighted to have so many patients, volunteers, carers, and parents affected by conditions in the audience today, both as attendees and speakers. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your views. A very warm welcome from all of us here. And although it seems obvious to have a conference called Patients First, and that it should include your input, the fact that we are holding such an event tells you that we've still got some way to go. But I do hope that by focusing on the collaboration and with you as collaborators, as part of the solution, we can take another step towards truly putting patients first. But we do have to recognise that one of the ways that we can be more effective is to understand the obstacles that are currently hampering us and tackle them together, rather than just debate them ad infinitum. In developing this event, we uncovered just how difficult it actually is to get patients and industry into the same room. This raises for me questions about whether important conversations that we need to have with patients about research are at risk of not happening from perhaps overly zealous compliance departments in pharma companies and perhaps overly cautious charities. So I really hope today might allow us to begin to tackle some of those barriers. So as you take part in today, what I'd really like you to think about is, what can you do, big or small, to increase patient-centered collaboration? What barriers can we dismantle together? The Prime Minister announced a week ago the commitment to medical research, and that was a very welcome signal for medical research. By pooling our resources and expertise and by working innovatively and collaboratively, we absolutely know that we can make a difference. Medical research charities and patients are very much at the heart of this. We can step out of the current health and economic shadows and embrace an extremely bright and positive outlook for the UK. Now more than ever, we must realise the potential for our sector to lead the way in patient-centred research that delivers the outcomes patients need and deserve. It is my hope that this conference, in a small way, is just the start of a conversation and proves the impetus and the need for much more cross-sector collaboration. And remember, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. And on that note, I'd really like to thank our partners, both MRC Technology and our sponsors, Arthritis Research UK, MedCity, NIHR, Genomics England, Cancer Research UK, and the Medicines Discovery Catapult, and those that have taken also stands upstairs. A huge thank you to all of you. I'm very indebted to you. Without you and your support, we simply just wouldn't have been able to put on an event like this. So a huge thank you to all of you. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Mike Thompson, who is the Director General, the Chief Executive of the ABPI. Mike, please come on up.
Well, thank you, Aisling. Welcome to all of you. We're delighted to be supporting this inaugural conference. Actually, I want to start by paying tribute to your energy and commitment to making this conference happen. And I thought it would be helpful if I explained why the ABPI supported you and agreed that now was the right time to hold this inaugural Patients First conference. As many of you will know, the ABPI represents companies who deliver 90% of the branded medicines used by the NHS and has over 80% of all medicines being currently developed in the world today. I have to say, it's a fascinating industry. I've been the CEO at the ABPI for 9 months now, and I can tell you that Brexit alone has made it quite a 9 months. Before this role, I had 20 years with GSK, but I started my career with Unilever, joining as a commercial trainee and finishing as one of their marketing directors in the UK. Focusing on the consumer, or as we would say here in healthcare, on the patient, is very much in my DNA. I often mentally toggle between my Unilever perspective and my healthcare perspective when I'm trying to make sense of the issues, and it has certainly informed some of the points that I want to make in opening this conference. The first point is to share a reflection with you on how our industry is structured and incentivized. If Coca-Cola had been allowed to charge 50 pence a can for 10 years and then had to make available their secret recipe to other generic manufacturers who would flood the market at 5 pence a can, I doubt that they would still be, after all these years, the largest soft drinks manufacturer in the world. In pharmaceuticals, that's the challenge. Companies have typically 10 years of market exclusivity to get their money back before generics enter. This means that the lifetime value to the NHS of these breakthroughs is incredible. Think of aspirin, invented all those years ago by Bayer. So pharmaceutical companies need to reinvent themselves every 10 years by bringing to market the next generation of new medicines. The money they earn in the 10 years they have needs to fund the research to replace today's medicines with a pipeline of future medicines. It is the ultimate risk business. It means that companies are structured to focus on the research for the future patient as much as delivering to today's patient. And they continually have to manage the trade-off between the two. As you can imagine, it often creates moral dilemmas. But when you stand back, it is a model that has proved to be enormously effective in delivering improved patient outcomes. Our average lifespan for the whole population has increased by almost a decade in post-World War II Britain. Truly astonishing. The second point is that we deliver this wonder of science by working in partnership with clinicians and patients. You only have to think, and many of you know personally very well, about the millions of patients globally who participate in clinical trials, which are at the heart of all these amazing advances. In the future, this will require the use of anonymized patient data in real-world settings, which is why the Caldecott report is so important to underpinning the UK's capability to remain at the forefront of this work. To do all this has required an unwritten social contract, and over the last decade, the industry has looked to move forward in responding to that evolving social contract by being more transparent about a number of key elements. For instance, we have committed to publish the results of all clinical trials we undertake. And last week, we published the latest data, which confirms that this has happened for 90% of all trials related to medicines licensed in the last few years. Furthermore, in June this year, we published what's called the transfer of value, which is essentially a payment, to healthcare professionals made by the industry in the UK last year. We work with healthcare professionals as we discover and develop new medicines, because they have important insights and hunches that help us on that mission. We and they have nothing to hide about this important collaboration. And we believe that by being transparent about what we do and how we do it is important in society that increasingly and understandably seeks to understand how things get done. Finally, we're on the brink of the next wave of astonishing breakthroughs, particularly in some of the rarer diseases, and so far, which so far have not seen the results that we've achieved in other more prevalent diseases. Let me illustrate this with a personal story. As you will have noticed, I am of an age and a body mass where it is legitimate for my doctor to raise with me whether it would be appropriate for me to go on to statins. It is a discussion with compelling evidence, but from the patient's perspective, perhaps some wiggle room. In the future, that could be very different for some diseases. My doctor and I will have a readout of my DNA, and we'll be able to discuss for certain diseases the genetic biomarker. And if there is a match to a medicine, there will be much more certainty that it is tailored for my situation. It will not be much of a debate about whether I should take it or not. Therefore, the industry and the NHS will need to have worked out a way of pricing and affording that medicine that will deliver for me today, but also that will create a return that will still deliver for future patients. Therefore, I welcome the Accelerated Access Review published last month, which starts us off down that road. But it is clear that there remains much more to be done. This will require more thinking at a structural level to ensure that all stakeholders, including government, the NHS, healthcare professionals, charities, patients and the industry, are aligned behind a model that can work for the UK. That is why we so warmly welcome the Prime Minister's support for life sciences and why her government's intent on developing an industrial strategy is absolutely ideal for the life sciences sector. This is a remarkable time to be involved, and this conference is the perfect opportunity to develop the thinking that needs to be integrated into that strategy from the perspective of the patient. I look forward to a very stimulating exchange, to learning something new from others, and I encourage you to make the most of it. Thank you very much, and it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Lord Sharkey, Chairman of AMRC, who's going to get us going. Thank you very much.